Baki Hanma is a 13-year-old kid who's about to fight 100 thugs right now. Why, you ask? The thing is that his father is the strongest man on earth and his son's task is to become as strong as his father by all means. In this he is helped by his mother Emi Okinawa, who is madly in love with the user. She has no love for Baki, but only helps him with training to make him stronger. She is the one who paid these goons to sit Baki down. Even though he is strong but he was able to put down 37 of them. This fight was watched by Kuriyagawa, by the way. Roughly speaking, that's a 6. Emi, he's the one who organized the brawl. Also, he made the head of one of the mafia in the future to fight with Baki. This mafioso's name is Hayama, and in his 15 years he is already considered one of the strongest city. He easily copes with every opponent and only users are considered stronger than him, as it does not give rest to the young mafioso. He agrees to fight with Baki to fight with his father. Baki trains in a special laboratory, but realizing that such training will not make him as strong as his father, he decides to destroy everything there and find a new way to become stronger. While he thought about it, Park and falls professional boxer Yuri Tchaikovsky, who is the absolute champion in his weight and even comes to the point that he has to travel to different places just to find a sparring partner who is not afraid to fight with him. Baki decides to challenge him to a fight, but understandably, he bounces back with one punch. This was his first defeat, after which he runs home in tears. Baki decides he needs to follow in his father's footsteps, so he heads to the mountains. There he is met by Ando, a longtime friend of the Hanma family. He once trained here with Yusera, who also came to these mountains to get stronger. Batya tells him that he came here to defeat an Azara 3-meter demon, who is considered the king of this mountain. One of these, by the way, was killed by the user Baki. Come to this monster, but begins to feel a strong fear of him. To help comes Ananda, but Aisharu inflicts on him very strong wounds, and only fire helped to scare away this monster from the wound. Had to call an ambulance, which by helicopter took Anna to the hospital. Baki realizes that he needs to transcend himself and pass a certain boundary that limits the power of man, and for this he jumps off a cliff. In flight he feels as if everything has slowed down, thanks to which he was able to dodge rocks and fell safely into the water. Becoming stronger, he again headed towards the Hazar and during the battle even managed to take away his eye. They fought fiercely and Baki was badly wounded. To his aid came running from the hospital Anton, who wanted to kill the monster with a gun, but he was stopped by Baki. He said that he and the monster were badly wounded, but still continue to fight, rather than respecting each other as opponents. And therefore, no one should interfere with the battle. Of Baki still manages to defeat Azara and monsters after defeat. Just walk away from such a victory. He does not feel any pleasure, because Baki hurt the monster badly and even deprived him of his eye. Although there is Azara was just defending himself, feeling guilty, he heads to the monster's lair. There he apologizes to him and gives him the gift of his wife's head, which he once killed the user, and the latter in return gives him the fang, which he lost during the fight with Baki. He then goes to his mother's house, who shows him Tchaikovsky's recent fight for the middleweight championship. She incidentally tried to bribe him for 100 million yen to fight her son on Tchaikovsky. Money is not interested and so he refused. After winning he wanted to win heavyweight too. To do that he gained 15 pounds in 2 months on the tank. It didn't like it. He said that the old Tchaikovsky was much faster and more dangerous. He went to the gym where Yuri trains and said that he considers boxing an imperfect sport and certainly does not consider it a martial art. But despite this, he has great respect for Tchaikovsky and will support him to the end. These words greatly hurt Yuri and the others in the hall. They tried to show the kid how hard the boxers beat, but Baki tore it up with one punch, showing that at his 13 years old, the strongest man in the room is shadowboxing Tchaikovsky for the heavyweight title. But before he enters the ring his team catches Hatoyama. He begin to brawl until the 15-year-old mob boss grabs Tchaikovsky's arms and with his grip squeezes his joints, causing tendons and veins to burst. Truly, despite such injuries, Tchaikovsky continues to fight. The thing is that he is a jigot, and it is customary for them to fight to the end, but, of course, the Kanayama still kills him, for which Tchaikovsky is killed. They take him to the hospital. Baki finds out about this and goes to avenge the boxer, ignoring Baki's guards on the way. He knocked him down with his first punch. No one had ever managed to hit Hayama with such a blow before, but their battle was interrupted by the police who came to someone's house. Challenging back said she would be ready to fight him anytime. Such insolence leads to the pit in a rage, from which he turns his car into a pile of metal. Buck then visits Tchaikovsky in the hospital. He tells him that he has recently seen Hayama, and even though Bucky's legs were trembling with fear, he is looking forward to seeing them again. Bucky realized that the mob boss could attack him at any moment. And it is this deal on the pit in the shopping center. From the effect of surprise he managed to beat up Baki, and at some point and at all to throw him out of the window to kill. But somehow, caught on the rope Baki climbs back up and already in return beats Hatoyama, after which he took off all his clothes and showed everyone his tattoo on his back, which is made by all the men in his clan in memory of a wandering man who protected his ancestor and thus saved his mouth. They began to beat them. Shiyama applied Abaka, the same technique that was used on Tchaikovsky. but, to the back's surprise, could move his fingers, which meant that the tendon had not been injured. They fought on equal footing, exchanging strong blows and holds. When it seemed that one of them had won, the other would get up and continue the battle. At one point the Baka thought he had won. I had won. After that punch, when everyone thought it was all over, she falls to the floor with no strength, but at that moment the doughboy gathers her last strength and waddles over to the mob boss. They acknowledge each other and thank each other for the fight, but suddenly to him bursts the user himself, with whom they on the pit dreamed to fight. True, it turned out that the difference in the village is too great. Yuzera playfully straightened with Hainoi. Even though he was tired after the battle with Baki, but he in any case had no chance, and then one Breamfather put Baki to bed, then headed as well as Envy. Another for not being able to come in for 3 years to make a great fighter out of a dog, and added that he wants to test his son himself to add to his motivation. He killed Ishera, who Baki respected so much. He brought him the head of this monster and told him that in a month he will come to fight him, and Yusera wants him to be as motivated as possible for this fight. Because if he disappoints his father, then the Yuzera will strip, and Baki ate Yasha Heat Teeth and then met Strider at the house of Eugen's friend. He told Baki that if he doesn't want to be destroyed by his father, then he needs to train. Strider told about a group of mercenaries in Hokkaido who see everything as a battlefield, and for Baki to become stronger, he must defeat them. Except that the Pride, without realizing it himself, sent him on a suicide mission. It turns out that among these mercenaries there is a certain Gaia, who is considered the god of war, and only he is able to take off. Having landed by parachute, the mercenaries immediately grabbed him, but decided not to kill him yet. They tied him up and left him by a tree. Once free, Baki begins to fish them out one by one and fight them, while learning something new. From each fighter he straightened out all of them, but suddenly the squishiest of the mercenaries starts yelling wildly. It turns out that he has 2 personalities within him, one Namura, the personality of an ordinary soldier, and 2 god of war, which was revealed to him after one incident. During one of the operations, he was captured and sentenced to be shot. As dozens of soldiers were aiming their weapons at him, he started to produce a strong adrenaline surge and was not killed because his comrades arrived in time, but after that moment all his hair fell out and he learned to control his adrenaline, so his body is in perfect shape, even though he doesn't train at all. They started to fight, but Baki couldn't land a single blow. All because during the adrenaline rush Gaia starts to read completely all the actions of his opponent. Gaia beats him up with heavy blows, and after he throws him to the bottom of the river, everyone thought Baki was dead, but thanks to the endorphins he comes to his senses. Hollander fins all day long, they are produced when the pain becomes unbearable by EU. Thanks to them, a person stops feeling pain and feels an incredible surge of strength. Hockey players. They start to fight again. On their fight, stops Gaia. He scolds Baki for having studied his body so much, said that his arms and legs do not listen to him at all, and all because he did not bother from them in any way. Then Gaia is about to finish him off, but Bucky's body starts to beat on its own. From these many trainings his instincts have reached perfection. And thanks to this it wins by squeezing his carotid artery and making him unconscious. When Gaia woke up, he admitted his defeat and called Bake to eat in tokens of friendship. About their battle was reported by Yuzera, saying that Bake had defeated the god of war himself, with whom, supposedly, could only be compared to Yuzera, to which he replied that Gaia is weak and is no match for him. And to prove it, Yuzera went to the Prime Minister, having informed him in advance that he was going to kill him. There to meet dozens of armed soldiers. Obviously, he simply did not notice them. When he got to the Prime Minister, he said that he had a piercing guard. And then he ran out the window. We went to last night. Fucking in the mouth. Yusser met Okinawa. She tried to get close to him but he rejected her. And added that if Baki disappointed him, he would wipe a Baki Zawu's feet. To the upset mother came Baki. One started beating him for not being as strong as his father in his 13 years. He asked her if she would love her son if he could beat a Yusser not like his. Just a little bit of love. But she just called him an idiot, bit him and ran away in despair. Baki runs into 3 Gopniks who start beating him up, but at that moment Hatoyama came to him. He supported him and said he was even jealous because his mom had just recently died. She had cancer and even if she wanted to, she wouldn't be able to bite her son. After the conversation Baki began to prepare for the fight, which was to take place at 0000, but before that he decided to warm up. 12 o'clock was helped in this by Tchaikovsky and Hatoyama, who came to support Baki in his battle with his father. They started sparring, but during this time Baki. He's much stronger and just played with the head of the mafia and the boxing champion. Also to him came mercenaries, but without his leader Guy, and all because he was assigned tasks. He had to get the user for what he did the Prime Minister. But as expected, he was brutally beaten by the Yusser, arrived at the scene of the fight and with him blocks Zawa. It is brutally it will upset. Begins the battle between father and son. Mother stands next to the father of Baki. Begins all forces, because by his father, but instead of fighting with him, approaches those who came to support Baki. He said that he was grateful that they had made his son a strong man. He also added that he cut him off, did not fail, for these met his expectations, after which the budget decides to fight with his son. But after 2 blows Baki faints. It would seem that the fight is over, but YouTubers decides to finish him and starts beating the unconscious body of his son. Battle. He knows no mercy. Even if his son in front of him is a bad mother, isn't he? Maybe, but even she turns out to have a feeling. She decides to stand up for her son, but the user such a gesture was not appreciated, and he fatally embraces her. Having lost his mother, Baki decides that he must become strong enough to defeat the user with his bare hands. And for this he leaves Japan for 2 years to come back even stronger. He spent all that time in Brazil, defeating one fighter after another. There he heard that there are underground fights in Tokyo, where the strongest fighters from all over the world gather. But to get there, he needs to meet the organizer of the fights. I want to meet Mr. Tokugawa. Did you hear he wants to see me? Obviously, they knew who Baki was and whose son he was, and so they themselves were very eager to have him perform. Baki rented a room from a woman whose husband was also involved in underground fighting, and after one of the fights he came home and died with a smile on his face. She also has a Kordzai daughter with whom Baki goes to school. I have no idea what he does because Baki hides everything. What he reveals is that during the 3 years he has been renting a room from this woman, he has become a champion of underground fights. We are shown Doppo master and head of the karate school Tokugawa asks him to invite his best student Kato to the underground fights. He used to do karate school, but he got bored with it and went to work as a bodyguard, but he got bored there too, so he went back to Doppo to find strong opponents. That's why he really wants to fight Baki, who by the way is about to have a fight with Tus, who is known for his fighting style, the essence being that his body parts are so sharp that he is able to strike as if stabbing or sever a nerve with his opponent, and that is exactly what he did to Baki, thus disabling his right arm. But despite such an injury, Baki continued to fight honorably, and then Costume severed the nerve responsible for the vision of his right eye. Understandably, after such a thing, Baki began to fight back hard, but when Kostya decided to do the same with Bucky's left eye, he was caught on a power hold and threatened to break his arm. If Casey didn't give up, but she didn't think of losing, so asked Baki to break his arm. In order not to ruin the career of his opponent, Baki decides to just knock him out, thus winning the duel in school. About the exploits of Baki no one knows about, so the thugs begin to divorce him for money, but for him stands up goats. However, it did not help, and they had to flee from there in the evening. When she was with her friend in the park to her these gopniks, they wanted her to repay them with herself for preventing to divorce Baki for money, but with the help of her friend they find Baki and breaking all the brushes saves Kobzoya. Baki champion and with him although fight many fighters, but his next opponent defines Tokugawa, so some of them decide to fight each other for the right to fight Baki. But that's when both of them come in and dock everyone like children. He by the way is Baki's next opponent. Then both of them have been wrestling for 30 years and the fight with Baki was supposed to be the day's last. That's why he wanted to win, because according to him, a wrestler has no right to lose outside the ring at 96 pounds. Here comes out. Oh what a chunky American. Toba started to toss Baki around like a child, to which Baki responded with accurate punches and put Toba on the ground, but he got up and continued the fight, using techniques from wrestling, and to win, is going to use the crowning move. But the problem is that the years take their Toba has a bad knee and such a move will hurt her husband. When he tried to use it, Baki managed to free himself in the air, but when he landed there, he hurt his knee, making his punches incredibly weak. Baki started to back him up and out of respect he hit his hurt knee, showing that he was fighting him at full strength. Everyone enjoyed the fight and the audience congratulated both fighters at this point in the ring. Juzer shows up and knocks out Baki with a single touch, taking advantage of the opportunity. Oppo came out to him and challenged the pelican who had once inflicted those wounds on his head. Baki tried with all his might to dissuade him from this fight, saying that the user could kill him, and to convince him, he decided to fight him, but before Oppo showed his skill and assured Baki that he will give his best to fight the user and Doppo will be held before the fight between Baki and Kurahine doctor, who perfectly know anatomy and therefore made his body perfect. The doctor, by the way, is the older brother of Kostya. Before the fight budget and Doppo Baki was very nervous, because of what could not normally warm up and get in shape, and he is nervous for a reason, because let Doppo and a strong opponent who was able to fight back the giant users for a reason carries the title of the strongest on earth. He allowed Doppo to strike, but as soon as he saw Baki, who decided not to hold back and killed Doppo, the loser was immediately taken to the medic, who tried to resuscitate him. But he couldn't get his heart to beat, and then Kurahine, who is considered to be the best doctor in Japan, came to them. He gave those who were there a lecture on life and performed direct heart massage. In the footsteps from death, Parejo noticed that from what is happening Baki caught panic, and therefore will not be able to fight at full strength. But despite this, Kurohin intends to kill him. Everyone thought that Baki did not soften and his muscles are cold, but it turns out that before the fight, one of Kurohin's patients came to him. She said that the doctor stood over him. Experiments they spent all the money for the operation on UKR Echo did not try to save them, for which she and other victims were left crippled. Of course, it is strange that Beatty believed, but her words motivated him very much, for which he started beating the doctor from the very first seconds. Well, what said Kulikov perfectly studied the anatomy, and therefore was able to inflict on Baki such blows, from which he lost consciousness. By the way, those fighters who very much wanted to fight with Baki during all fights support him. When Baki falls, they empathize with him. When he wins, they're happy for him, taking advantage of the opportunity. Kurohin calls for a fight with User, but when he jumps into the ring, Baki wakes up and asks his father to leave. Eugene told him that Baki would finish him off in just one punch. With his punch he ripped open his stomach and won. Sin required an emergency blood transfusion from his injuries. And so she decided to help a disabled woman who came to see Bake before the fight. She got up from her wheelchair and went to the doctor and promised to help him. After the victory, Bake decides that he needs to train, and so he ran to the mountains to meditate. But what happens next? You and I will find out in the Season 2 video, which will be released sometime tomorrow. Don't forget to write in the comments what you think about this anime, but we'll see you in the next video.